I'm gonna talk less about models, and I'm gonna share more about stories. I only have very little time, so I hope I will meet all of you later, and I'm happy to share more insights to our work. But I thought it was most important to bring some stories. And before I start, I want to just to give a little story about myself. So around 15 years ago, I started in university, and I joined a university in Denmark, where I'm from, which is a new university at that time, or newer. And in that university, you follow your curriculum and you follow your electives, but next to your normal day-to-day training, you have to make a team with other people, other students, and you work for 6 months on a project, a real-life case. So you go and find an organization, find the problem, and you work around it, and you present it in the end. And I did that every 6 months. So there was a lot of projects throughout my time in university. And I realized afterwards that I was not only trained in social science and political philosophy, I was also trained in problems and how we approach them, and how we work with people that are busy and are in industry or a public sector. So that was a real gift for me. And later I started to work, and I worked in an innovation team in the Danish government called Munk. And we tried to think about the social issues and the issues having the different ministry was struggling with. And we started to bring in students, and they were very progressive and they thought very different around the issues, and we learned a lot. And later I got to run an innovation lab in the university in Denmark. I did that it was a 5-year project. I got a bunch of money, and I had 5 years to try to make the university have more social impact. And I tried to connect the researchers across the departments and to build strategic partnerships. And in the end of the day, that was a hard job, because I was going to manage both logics, the research university logic and the people in outside that was like busy and had no time to wait. So I learned a lot, and I realized that a lot of universities are having the similar challenges. So when I moved to the UK and I applied for a job at SIX's, I wanted to build more network between the universities that are doing this change. I think it's very important to stay together. So that was a short story. I really hope I will meet all of you and learn more about your context here. So I put this title to the talk saying, how can we rethink the purpose and structures of universities to meet the needs of today? And I'm going to present part of my work that is around how universities are organizing themselves differently to have an impact. And what is the role of networks, because that's what you are here today for. And I think I just want to say that just showing up today is a really good thing. It shows that you have interest in being together, and I think that's where it starts. So before we start, this is a hat. For those of you who don't know the 6 thinking hats, this is like a training exercise where you try to put a different hat to your perspective. And I wanted to just give you guys 1 minute to ask the person next to you, what do you think is the purpose of universities if it's not research and if it's not education? What is then the purpose? Just 1 minute. And I'm gonna hear what you're discussing in the break. You should talk now, I think. Just talk to the person next to you. There should be more purpose. Okay, I'm gonna ask you in the break what you discussed. So before I talk about universities, I just want to say a little bit about what is SIX. I think maybe some of you know SIX. 2 weeks ago we ran the Unusual Suspects Festival here in Seoul City, 2 of my colleagues. But SIX is a social innovation exchange. We are built on value relationships and knowledge. And we believe that the exchange of these experiences and the knowledge is what drives the positive social change. And that's why we work globally, to facilitate these purposeful conversations and the relationships. And the relationships are very important, again, why you're here today. And often people ask, so what is social innovation? And I think there are not one definition, but how we like to think about it is that social innovation can be a process, it can be a service, it can be a technology, it can be a way of thinking, and often it's about something that's being done in a new way, or by a new person in a new place. It's very different from case to case, and I think when we talk about social innovation, it has to be something that is both good for society and while also enhances society's ability to act. So that's how we perceive it. And so we are an exchange. So what are the impact we are creating? And we talk about measuring impact and collective impact. And this is what we believe we are doing. So we are trying to create experiences to grow the social innovation movement. We are trying to increase the impact on philanthropy. And we are trying to influence policy to incorporate social innovation more. We try to empower organizations to innovate. And not least, do we challenge university to rethink their purpose. And just a few numbers. So we work with more than 80 current partners, and we work with universities. We work currently with 25 universities in more than 10 countries. We work with them to try to think about their work as a university. We run a network for foundations for philanthropy, currently 75 foundations. And we do a lot of activities and events and bring together a lot of people every year. And I was thinking while Jeff was talking, are we then a backbone organization for social innovation? It might be, because we are trying to build the field. And we do that by convening, so events, bringing people together. We do it by building capacity. And we do it by looking into knowledge and learning. What can we learn from each other? And how can we keep making learning accessible? And for us, it's very important to think about how do we make everybody have access to social innovation, and how do we apply it in our own context? And we do work around the world, which is a challenge, but also wonderful. So, coming back to universities, what is then the universities of the future? And I think most appropriate is to start by asking why. Why are we having this conversation? And I think we had a talk before saying, society is becoming more problematic. There are more and more challenges, and they are increasing in scale and complexity. And I think we see a lot of traditional institutions, banks, public service, NGOs, they're having to rethink their business, they're having to rethink their market, they have to begin to collaborate more. And it's no different from universities. Universities also have to readjust to the challenges of today. And I think we see more and more young people today, they have a different understanding. They want gender equality, they want environmental friendly energy systems, so there'll be a different demand. And they also want the universities to have a social impact. They want the universities to care for how they have an impact as a university. But I think we are at a great space right now. We have to move away from the line model, and we have to become more of a movement of transformation. We have to look at different things at the same time. We have to apply research and development to our own practice, and we have the potential of creating not just like logics and purpose in our own universities, but also in a political, economic, and social value. So I'm not going to have time to read these quotes to you, but this is different people saying why we need to rethink the role of universities. And we need to not only think about how we build programs and curriculums, we also have to think about how we are being taught and how we think about being taught also as people working in a university. And I think this quote about saying we can't just let social innovation cannot just be something we tick in a box. It has to be something we truly believe in and we truly adjust in our own institutions. I think that's a really good point. But this is also a why. This is a why we are here today. Because when we work with universities, we find that this is often the case. If you are working with social innovation in university, you can feel like the person going against the crowd, the only one seeing the light, or everybody looks at you because you're doing something different, or like maybe you're very lonely and you can't really, you're isolated, or maybe you sit there in your social innovation unit, which is a room and nobody can come and join you. So this is why we need to build networks, because it's very important that we are all experiencing this, and how can we support each other and knowing that we're all doing the same thing. So, I think I would like to say we think about our work with social innovation in universities as a ecosystem. It starts with the students in the middle, it starts with the people, those we have to teach. Around that is spaces and structures, how do we do that? And then how do we build it into our strategy? How do we think about the shared knowledge we can create? And how in the outer circle, what are the synergies and network we can foster to really support all these things that are happening? So we see 5 ways. This is just a framework. We think that universities are organizing themselves to have more impact. And this is around creating spaces and changing structures, building shared knowledge, embracing network approach, redefining strategy, preparing students for the real world. And I'm going to come with some quick examples, and I can send you all these things afterwards, so please come and I will share with you. But there are many ways to create spaces and changes, structures internally. We see labs more and more, different forms of labs. It can be labs that are very specific around a certain purpose, like a policy lab, and it makes it easier for government to work with universities when you define what your lab is for. We also see labs that are more driven around a specific way of working. It can be design, so labs that sit within design disciplines to really foster that form of working. And lab can also be a space within a university that allows different forms of internally new ways of working together. And one of the things we've done recently at SIX was working with the ENSI Business School in Spain. And we came together, we did a lab on labs event with them one day. We brought together 100 people from around the world and discussed what might a social innovation lab look like for them. And in the end, they decided not to have a lab because, actually it didn't make sense at this point in time. So thinking about why are we doing it and how does it sit within the existing organization, that's a really good idea. How do we build shared knowledge? These are just examples of also how we're working. So it's something around the more like strong projects that build knowledge base, provide cases, understanding, frameworks. And then there's something around how do we disseminate knowledge? How do we write about it? I just saw yesterday the Social Innovation Stanford Review is in Korean now. That was interesting. And also how do we bring people together just to share? So we are running some works, some conferences called Strategic Foresight and SI Live, bringing research into a conversation. So there are a lot of projects that are mapping, and I will send you the links as well if you want them. But these are all projects that really map the field and what is being done and how can we learn from each other. This is our work in the European Commission where I run different projects. And as you see, we've been working with the European Commission for a long time. And I think there's something around the legacy and legitimacy you can build by working again and again and building on top of your work and really trying to strengthen the field. And the European Commission allows that because they support the project, so that's very lucky. This is at MindLab where I used to work. A lot of people asked us, how do you have an impact? What do you do? And we started to try to draw out our journey. And it helped people understand what the purpose and the change we were creating. And this is another open platform that builds handbook and tools, resources, case studies together. So this is also a European platform where we connect the tools with the cases. So how is it being used in practice to try to make it easier to learn. So around redefining strategy, a lot of universities are becoming more aware of how they articulated it. I worked with a university in South Australia for a while, and they tried to really change their strategy. They said, well, we declare a commitment to social innovation and embedded creativity, and they put it out in the first page of their entire strategy. So how can you articulate your ambition around strategy, and what is that purposeful? How can that help support the actions that can happen. And also a really great example is the Bertha Center in Cape Town in South Africa, which changed the entire purpose in the university to really like build social innovation into their core value and invite a lot of different actors to rethink and think with them around their work. I also just want to share this with you because I think a lot of things around the strategy is also, we talked about how do we measure impact and what is the strategy for measuring impact. Yesterday I went to see the Hope Institute and this was in their hallway and they said to me, well, we had to like, we asked some people if we could take a picture of them and hear about their story, and we had 100 people signing up in one day. So, and on the other picture is all their projects hanging in the ceiling. So maybe we need to think about what is impact? Is it the people that want to work with us and the people that want to provide their story out there? How can we visualize it in a different way so it doesn't just become numbers? I think that's really important. And this is, I think this is a really good thought around evaluation. We often want to evaluate and measure impact very quickly of our innovation work, and it doesn't really make sense because often innovation is a long-time process. And evaluation is backward-looking. We evaluate something that happened. Innovation is forward-looking. So it's very important to think about, when are we evaluating and when are we trying to build innovation, and how can we think of the ways they are aligning and not making it always be the same, because it's not. And so preparing students for the real world. These are different ways we work with different programs that try to do that. And they are everything from like in Chile, they have a very direct engagement with government. So the government is very, actually feeding directly content into the curriculum, trying to really teach or help them teach the students real life challenges. I think the European Social Innovation Competition is an interesting case because it's about how can we make people more excited about, coming up with real life challenges and finding solutions, and a competition can help do that. And there are different examples of how universities are working with cases and organizations in the local surroundings that help them build more in real life things into their curriculums. And I think making those commitments are very important. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to be quick. One project we did recently was the match tournament, and that is like you have a project set, and the team that comes together is recruited, and it's professors and it's students and it's private sector, public sector. They all come together and they work together. And the whole purpose is to twist around who learns from whom. So this is a way for professors and researchers to learn from the students as well. And then they exchange between different countries. And I can send you more, but this is a really great example of tipping around how do we build learning space. The upper picture is a building, that's a smart school. It's an accessible classroom for everybody to teach everyone. So they're trying to build a space where everybody can teach. So children can teach grown-up technology, and it's about setting that space, and it helps. I took this picture because I think there is a point around social entrepreneurship and how we design our curriculums. And often this is a picture, of course, showing how we have different cultures, and which is great. It's good. It's a good thing. But we need to be very aware of what are we trying to create. Some places it's very important to build innovation skills and build entrepreneurship into the existing systems, and other places it's very different. It has to be opposite. So in Denmark, it's a lot of people want to work with government. Everybody wants to work in government, and nobody wants to be an entrepreneur. Nobody wants to build their own business. So they have to become more aware of how to do that. And in Portugal, for instance, it's opposite. Everybody wants to build their own thing, and nobody wants to work in the system that exists. So when we prepare our students, we need to think about that we have to make innovation be in the existing systems, but also in new systems. And it's really important, and it's very different from place to place. So, why do we have networks then? I think it's about strengthening the weak ties, to become bigger than the sum of its parts, to embrace undefined ground. This was when we did an event, and I think the pictures show that often it's very difficult to figure out how you place yourself in the room. The network isn't really defined. And that's the whole beautiful thing about it, that you come together just because you want to come together, and it isn't always clear what you want to take out of it. And we do a lot of different networks. We do one in Southeast Asia. This is a model where we work with different practitioners, and we do different programs that build around studios, so training of students, training of practitioners, and the universities that come together, they all create a space where they can work, and where they open up for practitioners to come together and as you see here, so my colleague So and I, we did some studios in Thailand and Myanmar recently, and we worked around different models of trying to prototype what are the solutions. We tried to act it out with like hats. So it's about creating that space, and I think a network, for them in Asia, it was a very new thing of trying to work with these students like this, and to bring in people that were not students, so bringing practitioners, government people, and for all of them to work together. And I think being a network helped them understand that they were not alone. It helped them, build more momentum, and it could circulate and share the tools. In Latin America, we also work in a similar project, or we're doing a similar project, and they are trying to build, they just launched this book. It's a book that builds on all the work that we're doing for 3 years with more than 8 universities in 4 countries in Latin America, and 6 trying to help them understand what are the things we can learn together. Another project we're doing, another network, is a network that looks into storytelling. So this is mostly working in South Africa. And this is about the stories you can share, and how can universities be being a platform for other ways of trying to make change for individual people. So this is a project where we work a lot around digital, a lot around storytelling, a lot about how can we learn each other, how can we get to know each other and learn from each other's stories even though we are far from each other. I know I'm running out of time, so I want to say we brought together a lot of these different networks from different parts of the world in Brussels recently. And this is us, the group, and I think I asked them in the last workshop, I said to them, so what can we do together? Why are we even important for each other? And this list of actions they would like to do together came out of just 10 minutes of a quick chat. So I feel like there is a purpose, even though you work from very different parts of the world, that actually the commitments and the actions and the needs and the values, they are very similar. And if you put them on a paper, and this is not beautiful, but it's important, we can all go back and feel like we are committing more. So networks is about building trust, coming together in safe spaces. I think that's very important. That's what we do a lot at SIX. It's about different kinds of partnership. Reimagining who is your peer, who do you learn from, and how can we learn from each other. And I won't talk about scaling, and I won't talk about this, but I want to talk about this. I think you have to remember that building networks has to consist of visible and invisible parts. It has to be the strategies, the program, the politics, but it also has to be the mindset, the wanting to come in together, the informal friendships and networks that you can build. And I think you need to have both parts to become a movement, and that's what we need to do. So I want to leave you these questions, like, how can we create the space for universities to transform? What would we like to do? How can we organize ourselves? And what are the mindset we want to apply? What are the roles we can take? How can we change our own practice, and not only the practice of the students? I think that's very important, because we have to be the role models. Thank you.